As we speak, Republicans are marching America to a painful government shutdown that will crash the economy and hurt working class Americans because they would rather enact massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors than fund cancer research for children. They're trying to cut $200 million in funding for childhood cancer research, but please tell me more about how pro-life they are, won't you? They're also trying to cut $2.5 trillion to programs like Medicare, Medicaid, veterans benefits, and nutrition assistance. All of this, why? So they can raise the debt ceiling to accommodate even more tax cuts for the super rich. Donald Trump didn't go far enough during his failed first term when he added $7.8 trillion to our debt, the third largest relative to the size of our economy in our nation's history. No, now he's trying to add another $5 trillion to that debt. Why? So his super rich billionaire buddies can make even more money? How much money does one person even freaking need? I mean, is this how you make America great again? Really? My guest this week is journalist Brian Karem, my cousin as I call him. Brian, you can find over at salon.com. He's also co-host of Just Ask the Question podcast and the author of the Just Ask the Question newsletter on Substack. Brian is one of my favorite human beings on all the planet because he keeps it so real, and he's never afraid to speak truth to power. He doesn't care who he pisses off. He just doesn't care. He says what he means, and he means what he says. And frankly, we need a whole hell of a lot more of that right now. Right? Well, I hope you enjoy this interview. I know I did. Stay safe, stay sane. See you soon. Welcome to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast, coming to you from what looks like heaven because it's so like Sybil Shepherd lighting or some kind of weird Vaseline Carrie Lake filter.
Ooh, there's a reference there from Moonlighting. Sybil Shepherd. That's a good ref. All right.
Well, okay. So my guest officially is Brian Karem in his Randy Rainbow glasses. Brian Karem, salon journalist, podcaster, newsletter writer. Brian, cousin of mine, dear friend, one of the few good things that came out of this dark period of time. Welcome to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast from Sybil Shepherd's Moonlighting filter.
You're fucking kidding me? That's
Yeah, so I'm in DC. We just talked about this a little bit off camera. I was at the White House yesterday, which was a total mindfuck, but we can talk about that, whatever. It's not what I want to talk about, but I just want to put a pin in that as a caveat because I had a wee, teeny, tiny bit too much to drink, and the synapses in my brain are slow. I'm drinking a Red Bull.
Now you understand Congress.
Perfect. That makes so much sense. Now I understand. So yes, I'm channeling all of Congress today, but we were just talking about like this Republican sort of double standard, or not Republican double standard, the double standard that exists that even the Democrats hold themselves up to, which is that they had to protect Joe Biden from being out in front of the public as often as he probably should have been because maybe they were worried he was going to be slow on some of his words or stumble or trip. And, you know, that's what he does. He's an older man and that's a thing, but he's not demented.
And that always can.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
Right. But Donald Trump can go out and he can stand on a stage for 40 minutes swaying to nothing and it's fine. So like that double standard, the Democrats hold themselves to that worse than anybody.
Well, the Democrats play into the stereotype. Like I've said before, you know, we have two political parties in this country. One has no heart and one has no head. And Democrats have no head when it comes to the competition. They let the Republicans frame the arguments and they operate within the frame, and then they eat their own. And every time you see the Democrats falter, it's their own damn fault. Yeah. And that's, you know, they lost this election because it was their own damn fault. Instead of sitting there and allowing, in calling Donald Trump on everything, they allowed him to get away with it, and then the press allows him to get away with it. We're horrible. I mean, the press, I've covered every administration since Reagan. I can tell you I've never seen a White House press staff so horribly ill-equipped to do their job. Used to be The story I tell is when I first got into the White House, the first person I met was Helen Thomas. And the
Mm-hmm.
second person I met was, and she introduced me to everyone. The second person I met was Sam Donaldson. And Sam said, Brian, look at that first row in the Brady briefing room there. And at that point in time, it wasn't, Brady had happened, the shooting had happened, but I don't think it had been renamed the Brady briefing room yet. I think that happened during Bush. But he said, you look at the first row in the briefing room there's probably 200 years of experience. Learn from each and every one of them. And that was good advice. Now you look at that first row of the briefing room, there's maybe half of that experience. There are people that are getting their jobs straight out of college, going to the White House. They don't know how to operate a beat. They don't know how to face truth to power. They don't know how to talk to truth to power. What they're doing is they're playing access journalism. You're so enamored. And they play that same, and every administration plays that card because the bully
Mm-hmm.
pulpit of the White House is the greatest home field advantage in the free world. It is.
Yes.
They
Mm-hmm.
will put, young reporters in that Roosevelt room. They'll bring the president in to speak for a few minutes, and you're enamored and overawed by the fact that you're with the president of the United States. And it's very hard to push back. I've always gotten myself in trouble because the first time I was in that Roosevelt room and I had the president in front of me, and it was Reagan, and I just happened to be one of the guys, brought in that day. And I asked them about Iran Contra, and they did not like me after that. But that's your job, and you've got to
Yeah.
be aware of what your job is. And so we're so busy being happy, being close to power that we don't hold them accountable. And Donald Trump is the worst because Donald Trump doubles down on all the shit that he says all the time. He doesn't mind if he makes a mistake because he'll just double down on it and dare you to do anything about it. And as you see now, he's just going to sue you into oblivion. And that's the slap legislation and that kind of stuff is just what's really, really bad about Donald Trump.
I have so many questions now. Let's start backwards. So with the last thing you said, and then build my way towards the front of what you said, because I want to start with this like now sort of, oh yeah, with ABC capitulating and obeying in advance and bending over for him. What does and him now saying, I'm going to sue 60 Minutes. I'm going to sue the pollster in Iowa. I'm going to sue all these people who say things I don't like. And now he's like, well, look, because it worked, right? So let's talk. Can you talk to me about, first of all, what you think about ABC doing that? Why you think they did it? What it says? What it signals to Trump? What it says to the rest of the free press?
I don't know why they did it. As my buddy Sam Donaldson said, you go along to get along, but are they going along too much and getting along too little?
Mm,
And it wasn't ABC News that made the decision, it was Disney. And
hmm
so at what point in time do you stand up and you go, I've had enough? I mean, the proximate man, all you can do if you're the proximate man, and that is George Stephanopoulos or Iger, the head of ABC News, is to go, I quit. That's enough. I'm
Yeah.
not doing this. That would have been nice to see from one of them, but the reason why they did it, well, of course, it was to pay fealty to Donald Trump. That's 15 million. $15 million is a drop in a bucket. It's not like the $400 million settlement that Fox News had to make because, hey, they're not a news organization. Had to admit that in court, and
hmm
Dominion raked in money over them screaming that the election was rigged. Things that they're still claiming, even though Trump won. So there's a strange thing there. But what Donald Trump is doing is, and I mentioned it, it's SLAP. It's called Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. So what happens is, and there was, I think it was in Kansas, a small community newspaper was raided by cops. The owner died the next day of a heart attack. And they were sued for no reason other than the fact that they investigated a particular police officer. This is what Donald Trump is doing with a lot of money, trying to scare people into fealty and to reporting favorably for him. It's a well-known policy. There's anti-SLAPP legislation in I think in every state across the country, and I've testified in state legislatures for them, as well as shield laws. And right now, Jamie Raskin with the Press Act, that's a national shield law. There has been anti-SLAPP legislation introduced at the congressional level. All of that is meant to protect real journalism, which is occurring less frequently these days. And of course, without these two things passing, you're going to have more of what Donald Trump loves, fealty. And
hmm
you're going to see it all over the place. You're going to see it high and low. You're going to see a reduction in local newspapers, which is where, the backbone of journalism truly is in your neighborhood community newspapers. What mother doesn't like to cut out pictures of their kids playing Little League and putting them on the refrigerator? There's still a market for it, but we're not going to have it. And so what Donald Trump is doing, it's, everyone says it's straight out of the oligarchs or the authoritarian workbook, and it is. But the truth of the matter is this is just Donnie being Donnie. He just doesn't like people who disagree with him around. He'll like to fight a little bit, but he's got to always win. And the lawsuit that he's brought, look, Gannett bowed the knee before the election, right? They wouldn't endorse.
Right.
But Gannett owns the Des Moines paper that he's suing for a frivolous reason. This is a typical slap piece of legislation. Just because he didn't like what the pollster said, he's sue him. And it has no standing in court. But the fact that ABC, back to your original point, the fact that ABC is already caved shows that that large corporations are going to cave to Donnie. He came out in his first press conference, day before yesterday, and said, people really love me now. They didn't like me at first. They really love me now. Horseshit. Nobody likes you any more than they liked you before. You're just not seeing it because people are afraid, because this time all the billionaires have lined up behind you, and they know damn well they're going to get sued, screwed, blued, tattooed.
And exactly, like, it's not that they like you more, and they're palpably more afraid of not you per se, but of the things that you can do, because all the guardrails are gone. The grown-ups in the room are gone. He's surrounded by billionaires who can obviously do just about anything. So they're 1000% capitulating and obeying in advance out of fear, not out of a genuine affection for Donnie all of a sudden. And that's the thing too, and you said it, the oligarch playbook, the authoritarian playbook, and it very much is that. But like, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, yeah, he'd love to be a dictator, but I don't think he actually gives a fuck about all the trappings of all of that. He's pretty much wants to just live that life anyway. But like, it's the people around him who want all of that and understand building what that looks like. And it definitely means making the press afraid.
Well, yeah, everyone understands it except Herschel Walker. He's going to be the ambassador to the Bahamas. That in a nutshell is what this administration is about. You're either on Fox's, you're on Fox's payroll, you're a billionaire, or you're a good friend and family member who's already kissed his butt so much you've got brown stains on your lips.
You got a nice ambassadorship. He just wants an ambassador badge. He wants to be able to walk
flash the badge. I'm an ambassador. You're under arrest.
I can do this, but I can.
Yeah, the joke of it is the joke's on us.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, the first administration, as one prominent Republican told me, the first administration was all about people who knew what they were doing, keeping the paperwork from Donald's desk so he wouldn't sign it. This second go around, it's going to be people who are going to have him take the paperwork and sign it. These are all people who owe fealty to Donald and at the same time have their own personal axe to grind. And Donald's fine with that as long as you get his ass. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you want to do as long as you are kissing his butt. So you can do whatever you want. So Hartmann, is going to, turn Texas into a, rattlesnake roundup of immigrants and put them in concentration camp. All right, settlement camp. No, wait a minute. Detainment camps, whatever.
Yeah.
And the child labor laws, child education, public education will become workouts. That's what it's aiming for. And by the way, you want your Social Security? No, we're going to take that money and put it into the federal government. Oh, by the way, we're going to cut everything. I like the idea of trimming the federal budget. That's something that the Democrats have said they would work with. I love this. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk about. Both of whom know exactly zero about government.
Yeah.
And by the way, have everything to gain. How many billions does Elon make off the federal government? He bought himself a presidency. That's all he's about. So all of this portends very ugly 4 years, and hopefully we survive and come out the tail end of it. And I hope it's like the end of the Shawshank Redemption, where you crawl through a mile of shit and you come out clean. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't know if we're going to end up on a beach in Mexico, reuniting on the other side of this fucking thing.
There's a metaphor there too, isn't there?
Well, maybe if Mexico becomes our 52nd state, since they got to get behind Canada, so that maybe we'll see that happens. Because
Right.
Trump can't bring down prices. It's too hard to. But but making Canada our 51st state, yeah, that's a piece of cake. Like this is where we are, folks. What the? But yeah. So like, if we do make it through, like that's something I'm sort of wondering about too, since we're talking about the press corps, right? And that first row is, I think, little Deucey Light's in that first row, isn't he? That little dipshit. Is he in that first row? I don't even know. I'm trying to picture. It's like the NBC guy and then the red-haired lady, and I think they're in the front row, right? But
they're in the second. I think they have the second or third seat from the right in the front row.
Yeah.
Next
So
to
Peter Alexander. Yeah.
Yeah, or Peter Alexander. NBC, I think, is first.
Yeah.
And then them. Yeah, that's, and they've talked about shaking up that first row. Now, here's one thing where Donald Trump is actually going to make some friends in the press, briefly. Those first two rows, and this, I blame not the Obama, I blame the Biden administration for this, because it's simply hands down the worst administration I've ever worked with when it comes to communication. Not actual results. Biden has done actually some really good things, but bulk of this country believes that $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which should have been enough to get him reelected, that bill alone, that bill is the reason why we didn't slip into, a recession. That bill alone is the reason why people are employed. That bill alone is the reason why things are looking up in this country. $1 trillion investment. Most people think that all they got out of it were 6 EV stations in California.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I've traveled across this country for the last year and a half covering this presidential race. In every state in the union, you will see construction on your federal highways, railways, waterways, byways and highways. And by God, nobody has said anything about it. So the Biden administration needs to own the fact that they are horrible at communication, but they won't. And that's again the problem. And I've gone. Where were we? I forgot my point.
No. Well, no, I was going to ask you about quick. I want to take a segue here, because I was going to ask you about what you think the future of the White House press corps looks like, because he's talking about.
There you go. No, but that's the problem. All right, so that aside, they're mixing up that first row, right? And that's where they're going to find friends briefly. Those two rows have dominated the questions over the last for example, earlier this week, we had a wonderful press conference about the drone situation. Now, the drones in the East Coast this is 99% BS. Most of this is just BS. But only 3 reporters asked questions, and the first one asked 6 of them. And they were all bullshit questions. And so the question that you needed to ask never got asked. Only one question that needed to be asked: were there any sightings over military bases? Got asked. Everything else, the one question was, do you think people are panicking? She said panically. So she sounded, do you think people are, what the hell kind of question is that? So the diversity of questions and answers in that room are so poor that Donald Trump's idea of mixing up and kicking off the people in the first 2 rows is a valid thing. That those people get the access they have is too much. Most of them are in the press pool. Most of them think of themselves more than they are. They have a wonderful version of their own self-worth, which runs contrary to reality. Any one of us in that room can be replaced at any time, and someone will step in. None of us are important. It's only the questions that we ask are important. Sorry, I am now channeling my Helen Thomas.
No, you're right.
The fact that he's threatening to kick those two front rows out and place in his own friends, there'll be 200 reporters that cover the White House on a daily basis that will cheer that for the first week, until it becomes self-evident that all that's going to happen is that he's going to be questioned by people who love him or have fealty to him or loyalty to him or are afraid of him. And that's why the press sucks.
Well, but that makes me wonder, because that's something I was on. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I was under the impression that the White House, the Correspondents Association, that they are kind of in charge of who sits where. That's not the case. Like, I always thought it was like they pulled the strings about who sat where and who had access and who didn't. But maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, that is traditionally how it has happened. But it's an informal agreement, and the president of the United States could come in at any moment and say, "No, I'm going to decide who sits where."
Mhm.
So why they've kind of capitulated to that is because the White House Correspondents Association also handles pool assignments, who goes with the president, who doesn't. And that's typically something that the president doesn't want to get involved with because, man, is that a problematic quagmire to get involved in? Okay, who's available this week? Who's not on
Yeah.
vacation? Can they make it? Can they afford to pay their, who's going to, and making sure they have enough print and put, now maybe he doesn't even care about that. He could come in and go, screw it, I'm taking over everything. And these are permanent pool members and nobody else gets involved. That could
Mhm.
happen. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is the White House Correspondents Association has handled it. But let me be honest, the White House Correspondents Association used to be headed by Helen Thomas, right? She at
Mhm.
one point in time was a president, elected president of that organization. They are not in a position to push back against any president right now. We do not have the gravitas in the WHCA to handle any president, let alone one like Donald Trump.
And interesting about Donald Trump, because people are like, well, he was the most transparent president ever. Like, he always talked to the press, and then it's like, well, he went 300 plus days without a briefing when Sarah Huckabee Sanders was the press
No,
secretary.
it was when the other one was
Scotch and sour face arresting like Stephanie.
yes, when Stephanie was the for 1 year we did not have a press briefing.
Right. Okay.
When Stephanie was the only
Grisham.
action he took, Grisham, the only official action she took in the entire year she was there was trying to revoke my press pass.
Jesus.
That's it.
Because of what? Because something that happened that day that the influencers were at the White House. Was that what it was related to?
Yeah.
And you ended up getting it back, right? You went to court, right?
Yeah. 3 times. I beat him in court 3 times. That's one of the reasons why he's not real fond of me. Everybody talks about how he's so successful in court. Yeah, well, I kicked his ass 3 times. Actually, it was Ted Boutros. All power to Ted, the attorney who took the case. But Ted Boutros kicked his ass in court 3 times for me and once for Jim Acosta. So he's against the Trump administration.
Yeah, and that was the Seb Gorka viral, like, what is he, the secretary? What they gave him some stupid job now. Like, assholes, the Art of War guy's got a job in the administration now. That was, that viral picture of him yelling, that was at you. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But that reminds me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That reminds me, because I remember that was an influencers event, right? Like, that was a Republican, like MAGA right-wing influencers event. And I was the White House history for something similar, but not at all that exactly. But I want to kind of park there for a second, because again, it's sort of part of this like changing landscape of the briefing room, of the way people consume media. This emphasis that Trump has put on the digital creators or independent creators or whatever you want to call them, people call them influencers again. Like, there is obviously an argument to be made for them having a place in a room like that, right? So, I mean, there is, but they haven't had one to date. And, people will say, again, that's the White House Correspondents Association's fault, whatever it is. But what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about, somebody, let's just say, I'm not just advocating for myself, but somebody like me being in a room like that and being able to ask questions?
Obviously, I think it's a great thing. The diversity of ownership of the media, the diversity of voices is necessary and should be done. Now, how do you look at I look at it kind of like the way Ben Bagdikian looked at it. And he said, quote, "Never forget that your obligation is to the people. It is not at heart to those who pay you, to your editor, to your sources, or to your friends, or to the advancement of your career. It is to the public." Now, if you keep that in mind in that room, then you're doing the job of a journalist. You can be an influencer, an opinion maker, and you still have a place in that room. But traditional journalism, and what traditional journalism means, vetted factual information, still needs a place in that room as well. I think it should be a wide variety of people in there. I have no problem with mixing up I think some of the people that have enjoyed access to the seats of power have become fat and lazy and stupid in doing so. And so I am all for mixing it up. What I'm not for is what journalism used to be in this country. Each party had its own rag, its own pamphleteer, its own newspaper, who presented its own view of facts. I mean, go back to Martin Van Buren, go back to Andrew Jackson, go back to Quincy Adams, go back to even to the the guy who wrote the Declaration. You go back to that. all those people used to have their own newspapers and pamphleteers who espoused what they wanted people to believe. I don't want it to devolve into that anymore.
No.
I like the idea of vetted factual information. I love the idea of giving opinions. I like the idea of opinions based on mutually agreed upon facts, not your own facts that you have decided, oh, alternative facts. We really don't need that.
No, and I think you're absolutely right, obviously, but I think that's the slippery slope. And like from my side of this equation, because I have personally tried as hard as I can to make sure that I vet what I say and that I know what I'm saying is verifiable. But and I will say I never pretend to be an expert, which is whatever it is. I am definitely an opinion based person in that space, but trying to be as responsible as I can. But there are a lot of people who do what I do don't give a shit. And they are not beholden to the same set of facts, and they create their own facts. And God knows that's what the right does all the time, and shamelessly, right? They don't give a shit.
Yes.
They drummed up all the lies about crime in the cities and all of the immigration lies and all of the
all lies, all of it. All lies. And so they want the real fact finders out of that room. Look, to me, it boils down to this: opinions, are like assholes. Everybody has one. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own facts. And what differentiates an opinion maker from a reporter or a journalist? I always said a journalist is just an unemployed reporter. But reporters, basically, what you have is a system there. It's a team effort. You have the reporter, you have a copy editor, you have a city editor. You've got someone who's looking over your shoulder going, did you spell that right? Is that the way we're going to say it? And by the way, where'd you get that information?
Yeah.
When 33 people died of this, where'd you get that? Well, the administration said it, or I saw it firsthand. Those are gatherers of facts, and someone over your shoulder is saying, no, wait a minute, that's an opinion, that's not a fact. That is tantamount to journalism. That's what you need. I've mentored young reporters who come to me and go, well, this is what I think. And I go, I don't give a shit what you think. I barely care what I think. What do you know? And that's where that separates an opinion writer from, but not to put down the opinion writers, because everyone can come into that room and ask a question. And that's where they should be. I mean, it was Helen Thomas who said, and that's why my podcast, here's a little plug, is called Ask the Question, because Helen Thomas told me on the first day I met her, she said, Brian, it doesn't matter what the question is. It doesn't matter what the answer is. It doesn't matter if they don't answer it. Just ask the question. And it was Sam Donaldson said, Brian, I'll teach you how to yell so you get an answer. So two great people taught me right away what the importance of asking a question is, because when you ask a question, you put the issue on the record. And the problem with having only 2 or 3 people in those front rows asking all the questions is you don't get a variety of thought. You don't get a diversity of thought, like Ben Bagdickian said, it's diversity that makes journalism. And from that, and look, it was Mike McCurry during the Clinton administration who said, Brian, we learn as much from those briefings as you do from us, because we get to hear what the American people are concerned about, and we can adapt our policy to that. That's not what you're getting today. Today in that briefing room, you're getting performance art. People who want to see themselves asking a question, and those people, and that's why a lot of the questions, like from Ducey and from others, are all gotcha questions. You said this, but really you did that. Oh, gotcha. And then their fans cheer instead of being informed. Now, a gotcha may be part of it, but it's not just being there to go play gotcha. It's there to ask questions and to listen. And you need to have the wherewithal to listen to others asking questions. McCurry also said, it was Joe Lockhart who told me, he said, Brian, when the biggest thing I was afraid of in that briefing room was when people started following each other. If one reporter asked a question and then there were multiple follow-ups, I felt like I was in the crosshairs and I screwed up. That's
Mhm.
that's what we need, and you have to have experience to do that.
Yeah, I remember watching briefings where they did that, and then at some point it jumped the shark. Where now it was just like you said, it was just these opportunities they wanted to become celebrities in their own right. I think maybe
Yeah.
the COVID briefings really changed things, right? Like during the COVID briefings, we're all like, I knew where everybody sat. I knew where Ashley Parker sat. I knew where you sat. I knew where Olivier Knox sat. I knew where everybody freaking sat. Like I don't know if Olivier was in those rooms now that I think about it, but maybe he was. Yeah, he was, right? I'm
Yeah.
not even sure. Yeah. So, and then they became celebrities. Not all of you gave a fuck about being celebrities, but a whole lot of people were like, I'm going to be famous doing this. So I might as well take my 2 minutes here and ask a question that's going to get like Peter Alexander asked something about, what do you say to the American people who are scared right now? And I was like, it's not really a question. Like it's sort of a question, but it was another one of those opportunities. And that's definitely changed. But I remember when they would do that, where you're like, oh, they've got him now. Like whatever it was something. One person would peck at it, and then everybody subsequent would follow. That really does keep the pressure on them. But Trump, on the other hand, like you said, these reporters not only don't they ask the questions, nobody asks the questions. It becomes a pervasive thing where like nobody's asking him questions. Like, why don't you have anything more than concepts of a plan when it comes to healthcare? You said you were going to repeal the ACA. What do you have? What are you going to tell the American people? Where are they going to get their healthcare? Nobody. I don't understand it. Like, I just don't understand it. Something with him lasts 10 seconds. He can talk about, what's his name's Dick, dead golfer guy.
Oh, they'd love to talk about that. He has
Yeah,
a very
yeah.
large one. He's an American, love him. Very handsome man. Let's.
Side, like, yeah. But they don't ask any policy questions. He just said the other day he doesn't think he's going to be able to bring down prices, and no one's talking about it anymore. It was like it just went, it's over. Like it's a crazy. And then we've got RFK Jr. out there saying experts are basically the sign of totalitarianism, and we need to do away with experts. And then nobody's pressing Trump, and it's like, what the hell? Who is going to do this?
You're getting a good look at what the next 4 years are going to be like. They're going to bring back iron lungs for polio victims. I mean, people are extremely stupid.
Yeah.
And look, as much as I dislike Mitch McConnell, I love the idea that he went to him and said, "Look, I suffered from polio. Shut the fuck up." To Robert Kennedy. That I enjoyed because, it takes for them to be personally involved with a problem before they understand the problem. There's no empathy involved here. It's all a bunch of narcissists running the government who have their own agendas, and Donald Trump is going to allow those agendas as long as they kiss his ass, which is why you end up with Herschel Walker as an ambassador to the Bahamas and Kim Guilfoyle is an ambassador to Greece. I guess she's going to be teaching duckface in Greece.
Yes. Oh my God. And how to sell Trump steaks online.
Yeah. I still get, and here's the other thing. Here you talk about that. Donald Trump is still hawking online Christmas ornaments and hats. And he sent me the other day an email going, we want you as a cabinet level advisor. Please hit accept. And I'm going, oh, this is too rich. I'd love to be in that cabinet room. But all it is, if you press it, they're going to want you to give them money. That's all it is.
Yeah, and then they'll get you, and then they get the automated thing where people are like, "Well, I don't have any money for insulin, honey." It's like we just paid $17 a month for the last 18 months, so we didn't even know we signed up for. Was it
remember those tennis shoes that never showed up? The gold tennis shoes. People forget that he's a grifter, and so that's why the first 100 days of this administration are going to be the telltale signs of where this country's headed. Yeah. In the first 100 days, what he's able to implement, because look, he's not a healthy man. Will he last for 4 years? I don't know. He'll be Biden's age if he manages to do it. And honest to God, I'm tired of old white men running the government. I don't even care at this point if it's a young white man. I just want somebody younger running the government. Somebody who actually at some point in time experienced Aerosmith.
Somebody who did not have a dinosaur for it.
Right.
Somebody who doesn't remember the gold rush. Preferably.
Yeah. Someone who wasn't seated at the Last Supper. That's all I'm asking for. Is that to ask?
Someone who has nothing to do with the Garden of Eden at all. Right. We're not there.
Unless it's Keith Richards.
Richards was there.
If Keith Richards ran, vote for him.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Well, yeah, he'd never leave because he would never die. But I agree. I mean, my God. And yeah, maybe, for whatever reason, Kamala maybe obviously was not the person for the moment, or I would argue that, she wasn't, maybe, whatever. We didn't get what we wanted or hoped for in terms of not an old white dude running the whole show.
Well, that's the Democrats' fault, by the way.
Lots of reasons, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the biggest reasons they didn't turn out their votes. And this one, I had one Democratic organizer said, we should have elected her. She ran a perfect campaign. And I go, well, first of all, she didn't run a perfect campaign. She lost. She ran the perfect campaign. The idea, this is what kills me about the Democrats. The idea is to win the race.
Yeah.
So, the perfect race, you win. So
hard to try.
You can run less than a perfect race and win, i.e. Donald Trump.
Right.
But you can't lose and then say you ran a perfect race because you lost.
Right.
And so at some point in time, when the Democrats are great at legislating, the Republicans are great at running races. Maybe the two of them together make one decent group of people, but it's frightening to me that the Democrats still don't get it. And and then Donald Trump, he's a manly man. Yeah, right. He picked on two women to win both times. He lost to the only guy that ran against him. So I don't find him a manly man. And I find him, a representative of male virility or even toxicity. I believe Donald Trump is the fur boy who was always picked last for, kickball and always will be. And it's mommy's and daddy's money that made him who he is. But if the Democrat, and then I find some of the Democrats who abandon the VP, I find them to be as racist and as misogynistic as the Republicans. And that pisses off. I'm sorry. I hope I don't piss off your listeners again.
That's okay.
But the truth is, you're as racist as they are if you didn't vote for her simply because if you think that a convicted felon is better for office than the prosecutor who would have put him there, you're screwed. And it's only because you didn't like the fact that she was a black woman.
I agree with you.
That's what pisses me off about the Democrats who I hear from, who are always telling me that, it's all of the Republicans' fault. No, you turned out less. And some of you voted for him. So
53% of white women voted for him, by the way. And so many people voted against their own best interest. A whole bunch of dads of daughters voted.
Right.
Just dropped my glass. It's fine. Everything's fine. Told you my synapses weren't fine.
I thought it was an earthquake in DC.
Yeah, I mean, nope, it was just Joe the perpetual klutz. But yeah, I mean, the Democrats. You know what else they're doing, Brian, that drives me nuts since we're venting right now, is they had this perfect race that resulted in us losing everything. And what did they do? What did they take away? They're handing the reins of messaging and power back to the same people who, by the way, many of them also remember the gold rush. Many of them were also around before women had the right to vote. And they're the ones who are pulling the strings yet again. That is an exercise in futility, but it's also literally insanity. Like, why aren't they? They're not talking to me. They're not trying to ask me, what's your insight? They're not talking to the people who are doing what I'm doing. The White House is right now. It's obviously a little bit late for that, but they're still doing it. But those electeds aren't.
Same way. I spoke to a week before the election, for example, I spoke to a group of Democrats in Detroit, same day that Donald Trump was there, and Jason Miller said he'd see me in Gitmo. Hi, Jason. I guess I'll be in Gitmo. But
I'll be there with you because I call him the walking, talking, partially shaved scrotum. So I'll be there with you. But go ahead.
We'll have adjoining cells. Hey, guys, how you doing?
It's the Lebanese wing.
That's all right. So I was there to speak to Arab Americans and Lebanese Americans in Detroit about the coming election, and all of them were going, "Well, Donald Trump came and visited us. He loves us. I go, dude, he came there to exploit you. He didn't care about you." And they didn't believe me. And so who lost Michigan, right? The Lebanese American, Arab American community helped hand Michigan to Donald Trump. And then I hear from these very same people after the election going, man, we got screwed. Look who you appointed as ambassador to Israel. Look at his plans. I'm scared he's going to, it's just going to be complete genocide. And I go, well, what part of I told you so don't you get, you stupid motherfucker? It's like, because the guy shook your hand, you think he's magic? The guy it's black magic. He's Darth Vader. with a bad lightsaber, and you don't get it. They still don't get it.
No, his agenda the last time he ran was to make sure that Muslims couldn't come into this country. And that was the first thing he really did try to do. And they're like, but no, he doesn't mean it. And whenever I would say that you don't understand, Trump would be so much worse now that he said if they don't return the hostages. I forget what he said. He'll basically level all of Gaza, which is what he will let him do. But I was like, anytime I would say, you guys can't do this, I would get yelled at by a whole bunch of prominent people who'd be like, you can't tell people how to feel. You can't talk down to them. You can't tell them you're going to say, I told you so. And it's like, why not? Why can't I?
Well, I'm not going to talk down to you. But I am going to laugh at you and say, I told you so. All right, that guy's sitting, wait a minute, right there. That guy, that's my grandfather who came over from Lebanon. And he said, wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. You may wish Donald Trump is a great guy, but he's shit in your hand. So what is it? Just be real. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is all about being full of shit. And if you don't get that, but see, Joe, that's where you and I, being Lebanese horse traders, we understand bullshit when we hear it.
We do.
Because I grew up with it in my family. This brand of bullshit wouldn't last past my dad's breakfast table.
No.
So, but there are some people that are immune to it and some people who fall for it. And if you believe Donald Trump is your savior, you're the mark.
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. And there are a lot of people who are going to find out really quickly because in those first 100 days, back to your point, there are a lot of things that he can get away with, a lot of things that he can do, and a lot of chaos and carnage that can result from what he can do. I mean, if he does even a sliver of what he's promising in terms of deportation, which means to those, whatever you want to call them, detention centers, right? Like it's basically free farm labor is what it's going to be. Not free. It'll make a lot of rich people even richer because those detention centers are privatized. So the people who built them and run them are going to make a whole lot of money.
Money. It's all about. I was speaking with John Fugelsang. Both you and I know him pretty well.
Yeah.
I was on his show this a few years back, and he said, well, what do you think? I said, well, Donald Trump is a cancer and it's spreading. And that's today it's, I don't know if it's operable. I hope chemo will get us through it. But this is class warfare. This is all it is. The rich versus, by the way, it's not only, it's like what George Carlin said, this is how autocracies work. They have you fighting about stuff that really doesn't matter. Religion, sexual orientation. How many transgender people are hanging out in bathrooms waiting to attack people? That's a bullshit. That's the biggest bullshit excuse for anything I've ever said. And Nancy Mace ought to, you should be ashamed of yourself. The fight in this country isn't between religion or race, creed, or color. It's between the haves and the have-nots. Yep. And the rich people are, as Carlin said, keep us fighting while they keep running away with the money. And they're very good at that.
Yeah. And they're very good at, like you said, pitting people against each other on these things. Like, first of all, does anyone out there actually know somebody who's transgender child is trying to play a sport? Like, the numbers are like minuscule, but still they vilified them to the point where people are voting, whatever, attacking each other over these things. But they are so good at it that they've gotten people who, like I call them Monta MAGA, who are like, but my dollar doesn't go as far. And it's like, now you've got a billionaire with another billionaire in the efficiency department telling you're going to go through some pain so that they can get richer. And you're still somehow drinking the Kool-Aid. This all worked out for you just fine. I just don't understand it.
So they have, get this, 2 people in charge of the Department of Efficiency. How efficient is that? That tells you how full of bullshit that is. We've got our top 30 people in charge. We're going to have another meeting. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. It's like putting chickens in charge of the chicken nugget supply chain. I mean, the whole thing is it is bonkers, and I think you're right. It is a cancer, but some part of me is an eternal optimist, and somehow, in even the darkest moments, I'm trying to find a glimmer of hope. And I will say, even if this is something that destroys a whole bunch of the fabric and like mapping of how things have traditionally been done, maybe that is necessary. And maybe ultimately this shit gets knocked down to just the studs and the foundation because we've been building it up wrong, because it wasn't going anywhere. Where it was going was just more of this. And maybe we just need to fucking wipe it out and build something better and something new and something.
I hope the Democrats get that.
That's what I'm saying.
The thing that is most disturbing in culture today is the fact that the Democrats have lost rural America when they're the party that is most supportive of rural America. And so one of the things I really got angry with the Biden administration was the fact that its communication staff always preached to us. They were right, everybody else was wrong. And I remember walking in one time, I said, "What you people don't understand." He goes, "What do you mean by you people?" And I go, "You people in government don't signal virtue to me.
Yeah.
You people, I was here before you, I'll be here after you. By the way, I'm still here and they're leaving." So
Yeah, good point.
the problem is they've got to quit this idea that they know best and they're going to preach to us what is best. Listen to what people want. That's why Donald Trump is effective.
Yeah.
He's not one of us, but he says he is, and he speaks to the things that people are afraid of. He gets you scared about the things that you were already scared about and pretends he has solutions. If you actually listen to people and reacted to them and talk and go out in the community, one of the best guys I ever knew and if you ever read his book, Man of the House, Tip O'Neill talked about how he went out when he was younger and recruited people for the Democratic Party. He said the Democratic Party had become too insular. It was too worried about raising money, all the things that are going on today. So when they put him in charge of finding people to run for Congress, he would go out to the communities and go, "Okay, who's the most popular guy in the community? Who's the high school football coach that everybody likes? Who's selling cars that everybody likes?" And went to them and approached them and said, "Okay, we'll give you money. We want you to run." And he even got converts from the Republican Party to run as Democrats. And that's the type of outreach that the Democrats have got to go for instead of just gathering together as much money as possible. That's the big part of the problem. And the Republicans they've got that market cornered, folks. And by the way, billionaires give to everybody. They just want a stake in the game. Well, if you want to win the game, go to the people where they live and breathe and talk to them. And I know communities there, and part of this is because of the fact there are no community newspapers anymore that bind people together. Instead, everyone becomes desperate and disparate, and they look at national politics, and so it becomes very insular. And you don't have people in these communities that understand what the issues are, and the Democrats don't put good candidates out there to run.
No, 1,000%. And this is something I've been talking about with my friend Jess Piper. And if you don't know her, I'll happily introduce you to her because she's from Missouri. She's in Missouri. She's amazing. I call her my sister from Missouri. Mister, I've never been to Missouri.
Where in Missouri?
She's up in the northern part of the state, I think she said. So up by the is Iowa up there? Is that what the thing? Okay, up by she's up there. I'll definitely introduce her. I think she's going to be a really important voice moving forward. And she and I the other day on my last podcast, she talks a lot about how the Democrats have abandoned the rural areas and this class war 1,000%. She sees the class war, by the way, happening within our own party too, because that's what's starting happening with us eating our own. Now we're going after rural Americans if they're all Trumpers, and that's that abandoning of those people they peeled off plenty. The Republicans peeled off plenty. She said, "When I knocked doors, because she ran a couple of years ago, people said no one's ever knocked on my door. No one's ever told me this stuff. No one ever has it." Yeah.
Joe, all right. So you've got people in the Democratic Party and influencers going, "Don't talk to your friends that are MAGA." No, do talk to your friends that are MAGA. Talk to them every damn day.
Yeah.
And then, the whole idea of the Democrats not understanding that, I see that every damn day. You want to know how to, knocking on doors. All right, let's take one particular person. And I'll use it as an example that really works. All right. There's a young woman who ran for the state house in Virginia. She is the first transgender representative in Virginia. And Danica Rome. And Danica, I hired her as a city editor for a newspaper I ran. And when she first interviewed with me, I said, "You look kind of nervous." And I said, "Why is that?" And she goes, "This is my first time interviewing as a woman. Does that bother you?" I go, "No, I'm already married. Can you do the job?" And so she goes, "I think I found a home." I said, "As long as you can do the job, you've got a home." And she was good, but she ran for office, and the person that ran against her was MAGA. And he talked about how she was the devil and that, and she should not be elected. And she ran on a transportation issue. She didn't talk about her sexuality. She talked about the things that affected the people in that area. There were Republicans who voted for her because she talked about fixing the problems of Route 20 or Route 21. And they wouldn't even, some of them I interviewed years later wouldn't even talk, didn't even admit that they voted for her, but did because she talked about the issues. When you go, and she knocked on doors. She went and knocked on thousands of doors, and people appreciated that. But they don't do it. What are you spending your money on? The yard signs, commercials? Hey, go talk
Concerts.
to people. People respect people.
Exactly. And Brian, that last thing before we wrap up, like, because what I've gotten the sense of is that what the Democrats do is they say, you know, you need to understand what I'm going to give you, what I'm going to do for you, instead of saying, I need to understand what you need. I need to, that's the opposite. They need to flip that, because they've been so long talking at people and telling them, but you need to understand. This is why people are like, I don't feel this economy thing. I know you keep telling me this, but I don't feel it, because you're not listening to me. They have the whole damn thing backwards, and the knocking doors, the showing up, the being in the places. Republicans are so fucking good at being there with their little traveling circuses of like Charlie Kirk and all that other nonsense, but they still show up where the people are. And when people feel seen, and when you talk to them like you talk to anybody else, and you don't talk at them, then they connect with what you're saying. Because on the issues, they're mostly there. Look at all those ballot measures across all those red states. You take away the candidate, you take away the way that somebody's talking to you, you just put the issue in front of them, and they vote for it. And so that's why, like, it has to flip the script. You have to start listening. You have to go knocking doors. You have to talk about the issues like you said. And the Democrats, again, are going right back to the old systems they used before. And it makes me want to scream. It makes me want to scream.
Well, every time they tell me you need to listen, I go, no. You're running for office. I'm the boss. You're the employee. You need to listen. That's where the Democrats lose their voters, is by pretend that virtue signaling, you know, where they believe that they're virtuous and they know and we don't. And no one likes to be felt preached to. And I can't tell you the number of people who said, well, I didn't like Donald Trump. He's a convict, but I voted for him because at least he didn't preach to me. Now, that's the silliest goddamn reason in the world to vote for somebody if you are capable of critical thought. But it also indicates how people aren't capable of critical thought, and more importantly, Democrats aren't capable of critical thinking to understand how to reach the voters they want to reach. It's a double lose. We lose.
And here we are looking at tickets that were split between AOC and Donald Trump. AOC getting votes that Donald Trump got. And then what happens when we go back to the Hill? What happens is there's an internal fight for power of somebody who should be passing the torch and isn't. And instead of AOC getting a position that she wants, they give it to an old guy that has had his moment. And you're looking at the country telling you, yes, that's New York, but still you're looking at some part of the country going, no, we like the way she talks. We actually, this is kind of more of what we want. And then instead the same systemic crap that has gotten us to where we are. They're like, no, we're going to go back to that. And it's just madness.
Well, that's the United States. And our government sucks more than any other government except all the other governments.
Yeah. But right, if we're going to go through this cancer that I believe that we're going to eventually excise and defeat, it's going to be really ugly. We're going to have a lot of scar tissue, and it's going to be a lot of digging into that cavity wherever that cancer is. But when we get through this, we got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And unless we end up in the gulag and sharing, hummus recipes via tapping.
Well, I've got a great Tibby recipe, and I'll make you some hummus, and I got some zhedra and some mouse mafoof and some baklava.
Yeah,
we'll be fine.
We'll exchange recipes via wall tap, and it'll be like, wait, was that a hummus? What is that? Yeah. By the way, my nephew and I went to Old Ebbitt last night, and he's vegan, and I'm not. But he taught me something that I, at 50 years of age, I've never tried, which is shocking, which is dipping a French fry in hummus. I don't even know how I have missed this my entire life. It was delicious.
It's not, the hummus there isn't bad, and but good. I make hummus. But
me too.
The one that I can never get into is dipping the French fries into mayonnaise. That one's beyond me.
I like it. I like the Belgians. I do like it. But have you tried it in hummus? Have you tried fries in hummus?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know.
I've been to Ebbitt's Grill many times.
Yeah,
in fact,
the fries are great.
Back in the day, you would see Republicans and Democrats dining there together after the, and there was the Congressional Club and a lot of other. There was a time when then politics was not as divisive in the United States as it is now. And I long for that time again, but we're not going to get it as long as we have what we have in office right now.
No, we're not. We're not. But we have, like I said, we have a lot of work to do. I believe that if enough of us keep, you said you're still there, and you're going to be there, and hopefully,
at least until January 20th when they throw me in Gitmo. Actually, what I think will happen, here's my prediction. We'll see if it happens. I believe that what will happen is Donald Trump will sue a lot of people into submission. He will rearrange the press briefing room so his favorites are up front. They won't call on anybody who's going to ask a tough question, and they won't give us press passes. And they'll limit their exposure to the press. Donald Trump will do his, when he I predict he'll be there for a couple of hours a day. He'll go on Thursdays or Friday to Mar-a-Lago, chill out, and so we'll get him, doing chopper talk sessions once or twice a week. They'll brief. He's got a 27-year-old running the press office. That's not good. And the other guy that's the comms director is a WWE SmackDown artist. So he'll smack down all the the trash talk they don't like. She'll call on the people that she likes 2-3 times a week. He'll go on Joe Rogan or Fox and Friends once a week for like a coach's show and, speak and, what's up, what's going down, what it is. And that's going to be our access to the president. The pool will be jerry-rigged for him. And you're going to have very few times. It's going to take a look at that first press conference. They really like me now. Who is he? Sally Fields? I mean, my God. They really like me now. They really like me.
You really like me. And so much of what it's all because he was that kid, like you said, that didn't get picked for kickball or square dancing, whatever the fuck. So a lot of it is that he just really wants to be at the cool kids table, and he just inherently, like Elon, neither one of them was ever inherently going to be at that table. So they're like, I can buy that table. I'll buy the whole table. Like, oh, no, you're still not cool.
And he still gets his ass beat, but
seriously. And by the way, I was the last one picked for square dancing too. Poor Jason Grossman. I'm sorry. Rest in peace, Jason. They never picked me. No one ever. They're like, oh, Jason's out today. I'm going to get her, aren't I? So the shameless plugs again. So the podcast and the Substack newsletter of the same name, Just Ask the Question, right? That's what it's called. Ma'am. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I do a piece for the Mary Trump Media Network called Reverse Shot, where I turn the camera around, take a look at the problems of the press and how to fix those, which is based on my book, Free the Press, wherever fine books are sold. and you can catch me on Salon once or twice a week with columns. And if you like Playboy, go look up at all the coverage that, Playboy did for the years that I was the White House correspondent for Playboy. That was fun.
Definitely. I've told my friends, I'm like, one of my favorite voices out there, 1,000% is yours. It's so refreshing. You're just so refreshing. I love the way you keep it real, like you've always done. It's not like something you put on. This is who you are, right? Like you don't have the time, the wherewithal, the interest in putting on anything else other than what you are. And you're a straight shooter, and I fucking appreciate that very much.
Well, me too, Joe. I mean, because look, that's the way we was raised.
That's the way it was raised. Oh my God, but our dad didn't have time for that shit.
Right.
Did you ever go to the Playboy Mansion real fast? Because I don't know if you know Blue Sky. I describe Blue Sky as the grotto, and I've never been to the Playboy Mansion. But people are like, Blue Sky's amazing.
Wait a minute. Okay, so in my one visit to the mansion, I was talking to James Caan, the actor.
Oh shit.
And this was many years ago. I think it was 93, 94. And we were talking, and there were two women who were flirting. Well, I'll just say they were enjoying each other's company outside of the pool. And they turned and looked at us and invited us to join them in the grotto. And I looked at Jim and I said, "What's the grotto?" And he goes, "You don't want to go in there. The water will make you pregnant." That's a direct quote. So for those who don't know, there was the swimming pool, and then you had this little thing that you swam through, like this little channel, and you popped up in this little grotto where they had bubbling oils and stuff, and all kinds of things went on in there. And so I never went to the grotto, and I hope Blue Sky doesn't make me pregnant. So that's
yeah, but all the like debauchery and the warmth and the sexiness, and like everyone's like, Blue Sky's home, and it's like, no, Blue Sky's an echo chamber. Yes, it's fun, but it's not home. Like,
yeah,
you stay in the grotto. You can't go in the grotto and stay there.
Yeah, no. You have to be in this day and age. Look, you still have to have a presence on a variety of platforms. So it's it's Reddit, it's Gora, it's Facebook, it's TikTok. It's one thing that I will say that Elon Musk has turned Twitter into shitter, as I call it, and he's chased a lot of people away, but you still need a presence there. You need a presence on Facebook. You need to listen to people that don't agree with you, and you need to engage with them. Now, I'm not talking about the trolls because they're everywhere, and the trolls are just trolls.
Yeah.
But real people who don't understand and are willing to engage and disagree with you, talk to them. Find common ground because it's there.
Yeah, and listen to them. Like that, stop talking at them, 1,000%. Well, as I predicted, this was an incredible conversation. I knew it would be, even though I'm coming to you from very low mental acuity land.
You did just fine, honey. You were fine.
I was like, I'm so hungover. I don't know how this is gonna go, but at least it's Brian, and he's not gonna be like, you're an idiot.
You're Lebanese. We were born hungover.
Seriously, I was drinking Adak. Remember that? No, Adak.
Yes, Arak. I've got some.
I was a kid. I was magic, right? You put the drop of water, and the whole damn thing turns white. And then when all the uncles would be like, "Oh, try this."
Oh, yeah.
Sip of the beer, yeah, all
So
that.
you're not my family, I see. You were at one of those family reunions.
And did your dad's breakfast, were they sometimes not cooked all the way? Like my dad would like make a delicious, elaborate, which I know we talked about this in Chicago. My dad would make this amazing potato breakfast thing. It was eggs and potatoes and all sorts of meat. And the potatoes were always like just a little raw in the middle.
Well, that's because we eat kibbe. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up, that was my breakfast. Here, have some Syrian bread and some kibbe.
And was anybody even checking to see, like, was it just lamb they were getting out of the grocery store? Like they're just pulling it off the shelf?
Now, that was a nice thing. There was the Karem's meat market in Louisville that we owned. And so they knew how to grind the meat to give it to us for the food. So, and sold the Syrian bread and the mouse mafoof and all the ingredients because my grandfather and his father opened that meat market and ran it. And so it was always good to get, the decent food there.
Oh, see, now that's what every town needs. The closest I got is I got to go to Clifton. I got to go to Catals and Norries and like West Patterson, which is not called where Patterson's in Patterson and stuff like that, where my dad grew up after he came here. But it's not easy to get to a Middle Eastern market in my neck of the woods, which is shocking, but I had to drive a little bit.
And you got to make sure it's a Middle Eastern market run by Middle Eastern people.
Yes, right. Right.
The white people. My name is John Smith. No, this isn't a Middle Eastern market. I'm sorry.
Please try my delicious pita bread. Would you? And my baba ganoush.
And try my kubi. I only want kubi. Okay, I'm back.
No, we can't have the Chick-fil-A of Lebanese and Arabic food. No, thank you. Now I'm hungry. Well, Brian, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so hungry. We're like, I need a really big bowl of tabbouleh. That's what would do me. Tabbouleh would do me very nicely.
Tabbouleh would be good. Yeah, and if they call it tabili or if they call it baklava instead of baklava, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, but we talked about this because we don't call the grape leaves the same thing. Because I grew up calling them yebra, which I don't know anybody who calls them yebra, but other than my family.
Yeah, yebra was a slang term where I grew up.
Oh, really?
So yeah, yebra was like calling the hammam the shushma. Hammam was bathroom and shushma was the shitter.
So we were eating shitter grape leaves. What do you call them though? What's the proper term?
We just called it. It was that. I mean, we called it that, but there was another term that was used.
And were yours hot or cold?
It wasn't mouse mafoof. That was the that was the grape leaf. No, or was that the cabbage rolls? One of them was.
Those were so good. Oh my God.
I think that's the mouse mafoof.
Oh my God, the best.
Oh yeah, my sister makes those today. They're great. We could go on about.
Forget it. We can veg. And I love cooked kibbeh too. It's delicious, like little diamonds. Okay, well now everybody go eat some delicious Arabic food, and Brian, you're gonna keep me so sane throughout the next whatever how many years. So thank you for that in advance.
Well, Joe, it's always a pleasure. You know that it is.
Thank you, cuz.
We'll console each other when we're in Gitmo.
Joking? My kid's first question question when after the election, Mom, what country are you going to have to move to? I'm like, oh God. Yeah. And then I actually started looking at Lebanon. It's much better than
I was there. I was there actually about a year ago, and saw the family home, and
you
it's
showed me pictures. Yeah.
beautiful. It still is beautiful, and the people are the best.
Yeah.
The government sucks. That the people.
Yeah, the bombing's not great. Yeah, I got room service breakfast this morning, and she had lived in Lebanon, and she's like, "You have to go. You have to go. Not now, but you have to go." She lived in Beirut. She's like, "It's a beautiful city, beautiful people." And I was like, "I know, but I just not now."
Yeah, we went up to we were in Beirut for several days, and then went up into the mountains where my family's from, and had the best Lebanese food right outside the Cedars of Lebanon. There's this
Yeah.
great little road, and then you don't really first you sit down to eat, and you go, "I want to order some food." They go, "No, first we feed you."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're bringing you, like everything, the kibbeh, the hummus, the mouse food, everything, and then they go, "Okay, now you order." I go, "All right, I'm up for the challenge. Let's go."
Yeah, then you get the quail and all the things. Yeah, my dad grew up in Rashea in the mountains there. I think I told you that's where he was from. So that's where they grew up. But no, yeah. Okay, well, Brian, we're gonna have to make a plan to go get Lebanese food. Lebanon is on the horizon. But thank you again. Thanks for everything. I love you, cuz, and I will talk to you soon.
I love you too, cuz. You take care.
You too. Okay, everybody, that concludes this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. We're coming to you not from outer space or heaven or wherever I am next week. So see you guys next time. And thanks again, Brian Karem. Bye.